Collision last Saturday, we saw Kris Statlander face Britt Baker in the main event, and they did 489,000 viewers. That was the second highest peak of the show. The information I saw did not say what the highest peak of the show was, so I can't tell you what that was. This is the match only grew in the 3-minute overrun where they did 588,000 viewers and 209,000 in the 18 to 49 demo. This has exclamation point with it, so they are really happy about happy about that.
I think
so that's really pleased to see that, especially because part of the season. There's been some questions about Kris Statlander and how she's been booked as far as the champion goes, and how there was a lot of excitement for her return, and then it kind of cooled off and fizzled out and things like that. So it's nice to see her pull a number like that, especially on a Saturday night when there's people not at home, and now it's getting into fall season where people are going to be going and doing
football.
Yeah, Halloween things and football and college football.
College football's on at the same time. That's exactly the night game.
Right, and then like hockey will be back soon.
There's usually like 2 night games, I think. It's regional.
Right, and so there's a lot that they have to compete with, which of course we all knew that going into Collision being announced and things like that. So it's nice to see that the women were able to do a solid number. But yeah, they made an interesting choice last night. It was supposed to be Willow versus Julia. Then they did an angle where Willow was missed before the show, and then Kiera had to wrestle last minute, which Kevin said something that really irritated me. And I don't know how familiar he is with the Impact product, which, I will give him some grace for that. But he's made the comment about, obviously he's putting over Julia, which I get. But then he said something like Kiera is having to wrestle. Julia is great, and she's having to wrestle her on last minute notice. Kiera is a former multi-time knockout champion. She was a knockout champion. She was a knockouts tag team champion. She has been wrestling much longer than Julia. And so it annoyed me because I was like, and I think Julia's great. I'm a huge fan of hers, but Julia's not been wrestling very long. Kiera has. Kiera has wrestled a lot longer. She's been a champion.
He might not know.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I told my sister. I was like, I shouldn't let it annoy you that much because I don't know what he knows about Impact.
He's a big New Japan nerd. That's what makes him so good.
I guess Chris Sampson, who he gets all his stats from, did not have time to prepare him about Kiera Hogan because it was a last minute match. But yeah, so Julia beat her in 3.5 minutes. It was 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
Yeah,
it just was a mess. And then we get the match for Wrestledream, which we'll talk about a little bit more next week, because obviously next week will be our Wrestledream pre-show. But
I was gonna say we have a pre-show next week, right?
Yeah, we do for Wrestledream. Yeah, and it looks like we talked about it, but it looks like we could potentially be doing 12 pre-shows a year.
It looks like it.
Looks like you're gonna have to get used to us doing those more often. But so
one a month.
So they build the match last night where Julia, of course, is attacking Kiera post-match because that's what she does. And so Kris Statlander came down. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sky Blue came down and made the save. And then now we're getting... So Julia versus Willow is happening on Wednesday. So I don't know. I'm wondering if there was a travel issue because of Ophelia. And maybe Willow couldn't get to the arena, or maybe her flight got canceled. So they're just like, we'll do the Kiera, which is fine. You still should have given them more than 3.5 minutes. But so now Willow and Julia is happening Wednesday, but then Wrestledream, the women's, probably the only women's match on Wrestledream, because, it's hard to get more than one women's match on any AEW show, even though Rampage technically had 2, because they had a mixed match in the first hour, and then they had an actual women's match the second hour, so technically got 2 on Friday. But yeah, so we have Julia versus Kris Statlander on Wrestledream, which is quite interesting. I know that they have some issues because Stardom has a big show like either the same day or the day before, so talent wouldn't be able to get here in time, and I believe New Japan also has a show. Like, there's a couple of things that are going against it And that makes it hard for them to have women's wrestling. I just don't understand how you don't have the former strong women's champion on that card. Perhaps something will happen and they will add Willow next week. But it's just interesting that is, and I'm not saying that Kris and Julia don't deserve a match or a spot or anything like that. It's just very odd. And I don't know what I'm assuming Inoki probably wouldn't have wanted women on his show anyway.
I don't think that
he would have wanted that. So Tony's probably like, progress. Oh, but
sure,
it's just very interesting that Willow is familiar to New Japan fans. So the people who will be New Japan fans who will be tuning into this because it's in honor of Inoki, there's going to be some of the New Japan talent on this card. They're familiar with, they know Willow. They watched her. She came and wrestled the Independence Day shows in Cork and Hall. She got over with them. They seem to love her. I don't understand why she's not on this card. Again, I know we're a week away. Something could potentially happen, and I better not put her on a pre-show. It's just,
God, wouldn't it be great if Mercedes came out and it's just like challenged Willow?
And I know that some of
that match, because they like get to have their match that they had.
Right. And I know that some of the question is Mercedes going to show up next week.
I don't think so. I don't have any really good reason to think that she'll show up. Maybe as a one-off, but
I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. I assume before she comes to AEW, she has matches on her contract with Stardom that were not fulfilled because she was injured. And I'm assuming Stardom is going to want her first. And probably whatever she had scheduled with New Japan, if there was anything with if they had anything contracted. So I don't know that not that AEW wouldn't allow her to do like finish up her stuff or anything like that. But I feel like a lot of people, because the assumption is that Mercedes is coming to AEW, and then people forget that like she was injured in the middle of whatever her commitments were, and she has to honor those commitments at some point. And I would assume when she is healed and able that she has to, and I'm sure Mercedes wants to honor those commitments.
Yeah, definitely.
She wanted to wrestle these women. She was calling her shot all the time. Like of all these women, she obviously the Mercedes versus Julia match, like everybody wants that. The Julia in Japan, not Julia.
Yeah. Julia with a G.
Yes, Julia with the G. And she currently has the IWGP. I mean, the IWGP women's title, right? That's what she has.
There is
no. Julia has no. That's not right. No, she has the strong title.
Okay.
Why did I just blank on who has the IWGP Stardom title? It's Mayu. It's Mayu, right? Mayu Iwatani?
Yes,
she has that title.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sure, so there's basically two titles that she could, because she obviously was supposed to be the original strong champion. Now Julia has it. So like that match is, that may be a match that happens. And I mean, that would probably be a good Wrestledream match had it worked out properly. Maybe that was a plan at some point. But yes, thank you. Daza confirmed it is Mayu Iwatani.
Thank you.
I could see her and I was like, why am I blanking on her name? I was like, I'm seeing her. So I assume she's got to finish those commitments first before she does. I mean, maybe she does them concurrently. Like maybe she shows up in AEW, teases something. Apparently, a lot of people assume she's gonna do something with Saraya because that's a match they both want, because they were in the ring together when Saraya suffered that injury. Unfortunately, a lot of fans blamed Mercedes for Saraya's injury, even though Saraya has said many times that things just happen in the ring. Her and Mercedes are good friends. She even said when she first got cleared to wrestle, one of the first people she told was Mercedes, and that they cried on the phone together and things like that. So like, I think that match is happening at some point. But I think a lot of it too is they're being very smart and keeping Mercedes's her injury and her recovery they're kind of keeping it to themselves. Nobody really knows when she's going to come back, because she was still wearing a boot at All In. Maybe that was just to throw people off, and maybe she just wore it then. maybe she's still quite a ways away from being back, maybe because February will be a year. So maybe, maybe she's going to be out for a while, maybe, or maybe she comes, and somebody made the point that she doesn't have to be cleared to be on TV. So maybe they build some stuff with her until she's ready to wrestle. But there's a lot of unknowns with Mercedes that I think people forget about. And so it'll be really interesting. Like I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up at Wrestledream. Maybe they sit her out in the crowd again, like they did for All In.
Yeah.
Maybe she's scouting talent, or maybe they invite her to that, or maybe she, so maybe they tease something with her and Kris Statlander, maybe her and Willow, maybe she comes out and does, maybe there's some sort of a face off with Willow backstage or something like that. Or maybe, but on the other hand, I would just not be surprised if we don't see her at all, because I think people are probably expecting her. And so I won't be surprised if she's not there at all. So it'll be really interesting to see. But yeah, so I don't know why they're doing Kris and Julia at Wrestledream. It just is, I think part of it is probably because they're limited about who's available, but it just doesn't make any sense that Willow is not. And unless they make it into a 3-way, maybe something happens on Wednesday and they add Willow to the match. I don't know why they would do that, but maybe they add her in and then Mercedes is like, comes out, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, a lot can happen in a week. We do know that Tony likes to add things last minute and do. That's possible. Daza says a live video call on the big screen. That's certainly something they could do.
Something in the vein of that's a lot of what like Chris Jericho was doing when he was coming for Tanahashi and Naito, and
he did it last night. He did a video last night at DDT Pro. He called out Takeshita. They have a match on November 13th.
He does that all the time. So
yeah, at November 13th they have a match. I believe it's November 13th they have a match in DDT.
I like when they do that stuff. And
he called him out. Well, apparently, from what I understand, because I saw the video come up on Twitter last night, and so I watched it and sent it to all the site. But then apparently I saw something later that Don Callis was with Takeshita last night in DDT, that he went with him, and that kind of